This is Thing On. Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. Very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to Thursday's edition of the DCEU Daily. Why were Warner Brothers so scared of Zack Snyder's version of Justice League? That's what I want to know. That's what I've been asking. This is what I've been trying to get my sources to find out. And it's a very, very difficult investigation to get to the bottom of. All you can do is kind of put together fragmented posts from Zack Snyder and his friends and his team. Because you don't get anything from Warner Brothers. The only thing we've ever officially heard from the Snyder Cut are from people who have worked on the film. Zack's friends, Zack's team, Zack's crew, him on Vero. He posted another picture of a hand getting close to to Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman. Does that mean that the Snyder Cut is close? Who knows? I doubt it, but miracles do happen in this world. But going back to the question, what would WB so scared of? We now know from Zack that his first script, right, for this film scared Warner Brothers. Scared Warner Brothers so much they said, listen, look what's just happened with Batman v Superman, and you want to do this? So we know they were scared. I don't think potentially Marvelizing the DCEU was something that they wanted to do. It's not something within the studio's makeup. So I don't think that's what they attempted to do when they brought in Joss Whedon. I think obviously they wanted to Marvelize it. They wanted a kind of a brighter tone. They wanted it to be inspirational. But yeah, I don't think it was about making a Marvel Cinematic Universe. They wanted people to be happy, and people weren't happy with what they were doing, and they didn't know what to do next. And in sheer panic, they decided to do what they did. And ultimately, there were ultimate consequences for that. A lot of good people lost their jobs. And the people who decided to sack Zack Snyder are not bad people. They're just people that were afraid. They didn't know what to do. They were intimidated by the hatred that came from the fans and the pundits and the so-called movie experts who actually know nothing about film. So they came to make a crazy decision. But what I want to know is, why did they make that crazy decision? That's what doesn't make sense to me. How bad, right? I'm not saying the Snyder Cut's bad, but in their eyes, what was in the cut? We know there's multiple cuts, and I don't want to get into that discussion again. Let's say they were going to release the 214. I don't think that's the one they were going to release, by the way. I think it was going to be, was it 165? I think that was the one they were always going to release. But anyway, right, when they were about to release 165, right, let's just assume here, or once he was going to put it together, get it all done and shined up right, then it was going to be marketed and released. What made Warner Brothers take a man who'd recently had a daughter that had tragically ended her life and sacked him from a project, a big project, not just a film, but he was running the whole of the DCEU. And to all of a sudden say, do you know what? We're going to risk everything and get rid of this man. Not because he was making, box office smashes or anything like that, but because he had a plan. You take his plan away, what do you do with this franchise next? This was the problem. And they said, no. He has to go. We're gonna incorporate our new line division with Walter Hamada to run this. We believe he can do, I don't know if you'd say a better job. A better job is a flawed choice of words, but definitely Walter Hamada is someone used to putting a universe together and is a very clever man, a very clever producer who must be respected. And I think the job that he's done since coming in has been absolutely amazing. So what type of a film, can the Snyder Cut be? This is why I'm so obsessed with the Snyder Cut. I want to see kind of this trilogy kind of put to bed. I want to see it. I want to see the conclusion of it. I want to see what the vision for it was. But I also want to know what WB was so scared of. Was it so bloody, so brutal? Of course, it was. Justice League was obviously in places a very dark movie. And when we got to the end, maybe there was a kind of a hint of inspiration and Marvelization, if you like. But there's no question about it. With the money that Disney were making through Marvel Studios, Warner Brothers said, "Get me some of that." And Zack Snyder couldn't give a shit about big box offices or mainstream audiences. He said it at SnyderCon. He said it on Vero before. "I don't care about the fucking mainstream audience. I care about you, my fans, who are not part of the mainstream audience." I think that's what we get off on a little bit in the Snyder fandom, that we're not like the cool kids. Like in the 70s and 80s, when it was all about acid and long hair and going like that and rebelling and standing in the middle of roads and with placards. That's what we are. We've released the Snyder Cut. We're like Arthur Scargill. Do you remember who Arthur Scargill was? He was literally the leader of the Union of Miners, and he went to war really with Margaret Thatcher, the then Prime Minister in the UK. We are rebels, and we're rebelling against something really, really important, because the movie industry has become dented and fragmented by crazy, insane people who are insane, obsessed with spreading their political kind of agenda into the film industry and thinking that they can teach people a certain way of thinking. They think it's a better way. I don't think there is a better way of thinking. Everyone has their thinking, and everyone should be respected for their thinking, even if you don't agree with it. But that's the thing. Nobody knows what's in the Snyder Cut. Nobody knows what this guy did to scare Warner Brothers so much. And as I say, I think we're talking about a lot of blood and guts in this film. And obviously, if that's the case, you would need an R-rated Justice League movie. And no one at a sane studio is going to R-rate a Justice League movie. We were promised this was the movie that was a lot lighter. It was still dark. It was still Zack Snyder. We could still be excited about that. But it did have elements of inspiration and lightness. And it really didn't. And I think that scared Kevin Sujihara and Warner Brothers, to be honest. And this is what reached them to make the crazy decision. Instead of saying, "You know what, this guy's a maniac, we've got to sack him. Hey, Joss, we're going to tear this whole thing down, and we want you to rebrand the DCEU. We want you to just redo the whole thing, or even get him to do what Walter Hamada's doing now, course correction. We want you to go back, leave the Justice League, forget the Justice League, right? We want you to course correct this." If they did that, and at a later date did a Justice League movie, I think Joss Whedon could have created something great. Something that the mainstream audience would have loved. It would have been mainstream. It would have been very, very colourful. Maybe there would have been gags there. And I think people would have jumped on it. I think what they did was ridiculous. And I think that it's at that moment they realised that Warner Brothers can't sacrifice who they are. And who they are is they make films. They get individual writers and filmmakers to work on a movie and give us their vision. And that's what film used to be about in the 70s and 80s and even 90s and even in the early noughties. And we've lost that. Now it's about a company like Disney saying to a writer and a director, "This is what we want. This is the film we want, and you're going to give it to us so we get that banging, 1.5 billion box office, and that's all we care about. We don't care about good films." That's what we've lost within this generation of movies. And I think for a second, when Warner Brothers interfered with Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, they started to try and become that as well. And then when you kind of lose your temper and you're not yourself, and then you shake your head and you say, "Hang on a minute, this is not who we are." So now they've taken a 2-point turn, right? And they've said to Walter Hamada, "We want people to make movies, and we want to trust people to make the movies that they want to make." I think a lesson has been learned there. They know the way they treated Zack Snyder was terrible, but I'm still asking the question, what shit them up so much about the Snyder Cut that they would sack the director, bring in new leadership, and not allow the public to see the movie? Maybe that's a question that would never be answered. But what do you think? Why do you think Warner Brothers still at this point are too scared to release the Snyder Cut? What's on that movie that scares them to shit? I don't know. Who knows? But you never know. We could see that film shortly, or we may have to fight for the next 15, 20 years. Who knows? But one day we'll find out what Warner Brothers didn't like about the Snyder Cut.